If you missed our review of the first Kane and Lynch, you might not know these games have been re-released in digital form on the PlayStation Network, and you might also be unaware that these releases are my first experiences with Kane and Lynch. So this was the first time I'd ever played Kane and Lynch 2 Dog Days, and for the most part, I was very pleased. This is a solid sequel that improves on nearly everything that made its predecessor so unremarkable. Case in point, this game is a huge leap forward stylistically. The first Kane and Lynch was one of those games that tries to do realistic graphics without any sense of style. In Dog Days, that approach was fortunately scrapped for a far more interesting look. Like the first game, Kane and Lynch 2 is very seedy, very vulgar, very violent, but the sequel matches the tone to the graphics in a way the first one didn't, going for the look of some kind of grainy home video you probably had to order off some foreign website and probably shouldn't be watching in the first place. A combination of graphics filters creates its grain, its flares, and all the deliberate imperfections that make Dog Days much more interesting stylistically than its drab-looking predecessor. So obviously, as a guy who personally appreciates a thoughtful style, this game caught my attention in a way the first one didn't. But the good news is, Dog Days also kept my attention, and that's because its gameplay and design also represent some pretty substantial improvements over the original. For starters, this one understands its purpose. That is to say, it sacrifices a lot of the different gameplay elements that were thrown into the first title, seemingly only for the sake of diversity. Variety is scaled back for a simpler approach that focuses on things Kane and Lynch do well, namely shooting guns and swearing at each other. Now, this can make Dog Days feel a bit more repetitive than its predecessor, but the game also maintains a much higher degree of quality and even excitement. And because the sequel also controls better and plays more smoothly, you actually enjoy it this time. And it's still a fairly unremarkable duck-and-cover shooter, but at least it plays well enough to allow the game's strong points to shine through. And once again, those strong points are the aforementioned presentation and the game's story. Like the original, Dog Days focuses primarily on its narrative and uses some very cinematic conventions to convey it. And so rather than beat you over the head with cutscenes, the story unfolds while you're playing. Their in-game banter actually matters, which is a great way to approach story in a video game.
You listen to me.
Not gonna get anything out of him like
No,
that.
back off. This is what I do. You're coming with us.
And in fact, speaking of the game's story, another improvement is that I actually had a degree, however small, of empathy for these two. And that's something the first game failed to do, in my opinion. It gave you two utterly unlikable anti-heroes, but it was a whole lot easier to get in their corner this time. The story makes them feel more appealing, even though they're still horrible, horrible men.
Sure. How's your daughter?
She's fine.
I mean, after what she went through.
I said she's fine, okay? Don't start f***ing around.
Okay. I'm sorry.
If the first Kane and Lynch was average leaning toward boring, this one is average leaning toward interesting. The core gameplay is still very basic and even repetitive, which may turn people off, but the style is on point, the story is well written, and the characters, despicable as they are kind of fun this time. And I wouldn't call Kane and Lynch 2 a masterpiece, but it's definitely an improvement.
Kane!